My boss always said, "In this company, winners rise and losers get stepped on." Turns out, he wasn't joking. He stole my project. He stole my promotion. Then he framed me for his mistake and tried to get me fired. He thought I'd stay quiet. He thought I was powerless. He thought I couldn't fight back. Well, he was wrong. Very, very wrong. Because I had something he didn't know about proof. A lot of it. And when HR finally saw what I'd been collecting, he didn't just lose his job. He lost everything he built his entire career on. If you enjoy stories about revenge served cold, wild workplace drama, or terrible people finally facing the consequences they've earned, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new story. All right, let me tell you how I destroyed the man who tried to destroy me first. My name is Alina, and I used to believe that if you worked hard and stayed honest, success would eventually find you. That belief shattered the day I met my boss, Graham Mercer. Graham wasn't just a bad manager. He was the kind of person who treated the workplace like a battlefield where he was the general and everyone else was expendable. Everything about him was sharp. His tone, his eyes, his blue suits that looked like they were stitched out of pure arrogance. I joined Tarson Dynamics full of hope, excited about my future in the marketing department, but that hope lasted about as long as Graham's first friendly smile. At first, he acted supportive, almost warm. He complimented my ideas, claimed he saw potential in me, and gave me projects that made me feel trusted. But slowly, painfully, I realized he wasn't lifting me up. He was standing on me to climb higher. The first time he stole my work, I convinced myself it was a misunderstanding. I had created a comprehensive product strategy, refining it for days, rehearsing the pitch repeatedly. Yet, in the meeting, Graham walked in confidently and said, "I've been working on something new," and proceeded to present my idea word for word. I sat there frozen, betrayal burning in my throat while everyone praised him. Afterward, he patted my shoulder and said, "You're good at polishing raw concepts." Raw concepts? It was my concept, but I was new, scared, and stupidly grateful for the job, so I stayed quiet. That was my worst mistake. Because once Graham realized I wouldn't fight back, he turned stealing my work into a habit. He presented my growth strategies as things he scribbled on Sunday. He turned my client pitch into our collaboration, even though he hadn't contributed a single comma. Every time I tried to hint that the work was mine, he'd shut it down with fake kindness. "Don't worry. There's room for both of us here. You make me look good, and trust me, that helps your future. We're a team, aren't we?" And I kept believing him, like an idiot. But everything changed with the Avalon project. It was a massive opportunity, a project that could launch someone's career straight into management. I dedicated weeks to it, crafting the best work of my life. This time, I was determined he wouldn't take it from me. I documented everything. I emailed drafts to him and CC'd myself. I saved every version with timestamps. I thought I was finally one step ahead. I wasn't. 2 days before the pitch, Graham barged into my cubicle with a fake look of concern and slammed a pile of blank papers on my desk. "Alina, where's the proposal? I can't present if you don't give me anything." I blinked at him, confused. "I emailed it to you, multiple times." His face twisted into that cold, poisonous smile of his. "Well, I don't have it, do I? So, unless you want to look incompetent, fix it." He had deleted the proposal from the shared server, deleted every email he could access, tried to erase every trace of my work so he could claim he rescued the project last minute. But the idiot didn't know I kept independent backups. Without reacting, I simply pulled up my copy and sent it directly to the VP of marketing while CCing Graham. When he opened the email, his face drained of color. The corner of his eye twitched. He forced a smile that looked like it physically hurt him. "Ah, there it is. I knew you had it somewhere." Liar. He had tried to sabotage me and failed. For the first time since I met him, I saw fear flicker in his eyes. The pitch went brilliantly. The VP praised the originality. The clients loved the clarity. Everyone applauded Graham for his genius. And when the VP hinted that a promotion might be coming Graham's way, he looked directly at me with a smirk. The kind of smirk that said, "You can't stop me." Something hardened inside me that day. Not just anger, but resolve. Graham wasn't going to stop stealing from me. He wasn't going to stop sabotaging me. And he certainly wasn't going to stop climbing on my work to push his career higher, unless I stopped him first. So beginning that day, I made a decision. I was going to gather evidence. Quietly, patiently, meticulously. And when the time came, I wasn't going to just expose him. I was going to destroy everything he built. And he would never see it coming. From the moment I decided to take Graham down, everything about the way I worked changed. Outwardly, I stayed the same quiet, efficient employee he thought he owned. I nodded when he barked orders. I smiled when he took credit. I pretended not to notice when he tried to pit coworkers against each other, but inside, every word he said, every lie he spread, every email he manipulated, it all became evidence. I started recording everything, not illegally, just smartly. I documented every version of every project I created. I used a backup drive he didn't know about. I saved screenshots of messages, forwarded suspicious emails to my personal account, and kept a detailed, time-stamped log of every task he assigned versus every task he claimed he completed. And the more I watched him, the more I saw the truth. Graham wasn't just stealing from me, he was doing it to everyone. He made interns do his work and then mocked them. He blamed analysts for his mistakes. He forced junior employees to stay late so he could go home early. And somehow, he always got away with it because he was charming when he needed to be and cruel when he could get away with it. But charm only lasts until someone starts digging. And I was digging deeper than anyone ever had. One afternoon, while organizing old project folders, I discovered something shocking. Graham had been reusing old proposals, word for word, presenting them to different clients as original strategies. When I compared the documents, the plagiarism was blatant. He wasn't brilliant. He wasn't innovative. He wasn't even hardworking. He was a thief with a good haircut. And this? This was gold. But I didn't act yet. I needed more. Real evidence. Undeniable evidence. So I waited, observed, gathered. Then the perfect opportunity came. The company announced an annual internal audit, where HR reviewed managers, leadership behaviors, and project ownership. Graham hated audits. He called them corporate babysitting. What he didn't know was that this audit was my chance to blow everything open. A week before the audit, Graham crossed a line he could never uncross. We were preparing a client presentation when he suddenly stormed into my cubicle, furious. "Why isn't the deck finished?" he snapped. I blinked, confused. "I sent it to you last night." "No, you didn't," he growled. "You're getting sloppy, Alina." Something in his tone told me this wasn't forgetfulness. He was setting me up again. So I calmly opened my sent folder and pulled up the email. His face twitched. Hard. Because the email was right there, time-stamped, with the presentation attached. He had no way to deny it. But instead of admitting he was wrong, he leaned closer, eyes cold. "You listen to me," he whispered. "If you ever try to embarrass me in front of the team again, I will make sure you never work here. Do you understand?" That was it. The final straw. The last drop of poison he'd ever pour on me. I looked him dead in the eye and said, "Crystal!" But inside I was done being scared. That night I compiled everything. Every stolen idea. Every manipulated file. Every lie. Every abusive comment. Every thread showing he was exploiting employees. Every document proving he stole work from old teams long before I ever arrived. I organized them into a clean, undeniable chronological report. Not emotional. Not dramatic. Just facts. Cold, hard, career-ending facts. I didn't sleep at all that night, but for the first time in months, my chest felt light. The next morning was the start of the internal audit. HR had asked for optional employee feedback. Optional, for most. Mandatory, for managers like Graham. When Graham saw the email request for feedback, he scoffed. Waste of time, he muttered. They never do anything anyway. He had no idea that the person HR would hear from was the last person he ever expected. At 10 a.m., I took a deep breath, walked into the HR office, and asked to speak privately with the audit supervisor. Her name was Michelle, a calm, sharp woman known for catching details most people missed. When I handed her the USB drive labeled documentation, she raised an eyebrow. This is about your manager, correct? All I said was, yes, and this is everything. She spent 2 hours reviewing the files while I waited outside the office, my hands shaking. At one point, I heard her gasp. Another time, she called someone. When she finally opened the door, her expression had completely changed, her usual neutral face replaced with something sharper, colder, determined. Alina, she said slowly, this is extensive. I nodded. I know. And you're absolutely certain everything here is accurate? Yes, I said. I documented it all myself. She took a long breath. This is serious misconduct, potentially grounds for termination, maybe more. For the first time, I felt the weight of everything I had done, and it didn't scare me. It felt right. We'll handle it from here, she said. But please, do not say anything to him. I didn't need to. I wanted him to walk straight into his own downfall without warning. So I went back to my desk like nothing happened. And that's when something unexpected happened. Something that made everything even worse, and even better for me. Graham called me into a conference room. When I walked in, he closed the door behind me and smiled like a snake ready to swallow its prey. Alina, he said, I've decided something. I stayed silent. I think the team would benefit if you took on a smaller role for now. My heart stopped. A smaller role? Yes. Less responsibility, fewer projects, kind of like a reset. He folded his arms smugly. I'll be informing HR by the end of the week. A demotion. He was planning to demote me. After everything he had stolen, after every lie he told, after every sabotage attempt, he still thought he could crush me before I could fight back. He thought he was safe. He thought HR would believe him over me. He thought he had full control. And the best part? He had no idea what I had done that morning. I walked out of that room feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time. Power. Because by trying to push me down, he had just handed me the final weapon I needed to bring him down harder. The moment Graham told me he planned to demote me, something inside me clicked. Not fear, not panic, something sharper, something that felt almost like satisfaction. Because while he believed he still had the upper hand, his downfall was already in motion. HR had my evidence. Michelle had seen everything. And the audit team was preparing to investigate him formally. He had no clue that the quiet girl he believed he could bury was the same girl who had just handed HR the shovel to bury him. For the next 2 days, I acted exactly the way he expected me to. Nervous, silent, shaken. He strutted around the office with even more arrogance than usual, confident he had broken me. He'd pass by my desk with smug comments like, "Don't worry, Alina, this will be better for you in the long run," or "Some people are just more comfortable supporting roles." Supporting roles. That was rich, coming from a man who had built his entire career by stealing the work of people like me. But instead of responding, I nodded. Let him think he'd won. Let him feel untouchable a little longer, because the more he relaxed, the more mistakes he made. And one of those mistakes was about to become the final nail in his coffin. On Thursday morning, I walked into the office and immediately sensed a shift. HR was holding closed-door meetings. Department heads were being called one by one. There were whispers in the hallway. But Graham? He looked calm. Too calm. Like a man so sure of his power he couldn't imagine losing it. That confidence evaporated at 2:17 p.m. when his name was called. "Graham, HR would like to see you," the department coordinator announced. He stood up slowly, eyes narrowed. "For what?" They didn't say. He glanced at me. For a split second, I saw something in his expression. Uncertainty. But he shrugged it off and walked toward HR, adjusting his tie like he was preparing to charm them. Poor man. He didn't know charm wasn't going to save him today. 30 minutes passed, then 40, then 50. People started whispering. I pretended to work, but my heart was pounding, my fingers trembling on the keyboard. Finally, after an excruciating hour, Graham came back down the hallway. And he looked like a man who had just watched his entire world collapse in front of him. His face was pale, his jaw clenched, his eyes were red with fury. He slammed his office door behind him so hard the glass rattled. No one had to ask what happened. We all knew. HR had confronted him, and he must have realized, too late, that someone had exposed him. What he didn't know yet was who. I kept my head down, pretending to type, pretending I hadn't noticed him pacing angrily inside his office. 20 minutes later, the door flew open and he stormed out. "Alina!" he snapped. "Conference room, now!" My stomach dropped, but I forced myself to remain calm. This was the moment I'd been preparing for. I followed him inside. He slammed the door shut and practically hissed the words, "Did you do this?" I stared at him blankly. "Do what?" His voice cracked with rage. "Don't play stupid with me. HR just accused me of misconduct. They said they received an anonymous report with extensive documentation." I kept my face as still as stone. "Why are you asking me?" He stepped closer, too close, his face inches from mine. "Because you're the only one who would have gone that far." Inside, I felt a wave of satisfaction so powerful it almost made me smile. But I didn't. I stayed still, silent, controlled. "Graham," I said softly, "I've done nothing wrong." That made him snap. "You think you can get rid of me?" he barked. "You're nothing in this department without me." Then he said the words that sealed his fate. Words I will never forget. "If I go down, I'll make sure you go down with me." That was it. The final piece of evidence. Threatening an employee. Right there. Clear. Unmistakable. What Graham didn't know was that the conference room camera had been recording the whole time, and HR always reviewed conference room footage during audits. I didn't have to say anything. I didn't have to fight. I didn't have to expose myself. He exposed himself. Perfectly. I stepped back calmly and said, "Are we done here?" He sneered. "You'll regret this." But when I walked out of that room, I didn't feel fear. I felt free. The next morning at 9:42 a.m., the department received a company-wide email. I opened it without breathing. Effective immediately, Graham Mercer is no longer employed at Tarson Dynamics. All concerns regarding past or ongoing projects will be handled by the auditing committee. Please direct all questions to HR. 4 sentences. That was all it took to end the career of a man who had spent years stepping on everyone around him. The reaction in the office was instant. Shock. Whispers. A few gasps. And one analyst even muttered, "Finally." People began connecting dots, realizing the truth, recognizing the pattern they had ignored for years. Meanwhile, Graham was escorted out of the building by security. Red-faced, furious, humiliated. He glanced around the office, searching for someone to blame. His eyes landed on me for a split second, and the look he gave me. It was the look of a man who knew exactly who had beaten him, but he couldn't prove it. He would never prove it. I didn't say anything. I didn't look away either. I simply closed my laptop, took a sip of my coffee, and watched the man who tried to destroy me walk out of the building with his entire career in ruins. But the story wasn't over. Not yet. Because what happened after his firing was even more dramatic than the firing itself. After Graham was escorted out of the building, I thought the story was over. I thought losing his job, his title, and his power would be enough. But the fallout from his downfall rippled far wider than I ever expected, and in ways that revealed just how deep his corruption went. The day after he was fired, HR held a full department meeting. Michelle, the audit supervisor, stood at the front of the room with a stack of documents and a tone that was calm but unforgiving. She announced that during the investigation, they uncovered a pattern of unethical behavior, falsified performance reports, manipulation of project ownership, and professional misconduct that had been ongoing for years. The room fell silent. People exchanged glances. Some looked shocked. Others looked strangely relieved, like they had spent years carrying a weight they didn't know how to name. Then Michelle said something that made my heart stop. We also found multiple instances of retaliation against employees, including attempts to sabotage, positions and demote individuals unjustly. My breath caught. She didn't say my name, but she didn't need to. Half the room instinctively turned toward me. Their eyes widened with realization. They understood. They saw it now. They recognized all the times Graham had belittled me, dismissed me, taken credit for my work. And the guilt I had carried, the shame of staying silent, began to evaporate. After the meeting, people quietly approached me. One analyst whispered, "I always knew something was wrong." Another said, "You didn't deserve any of what he did." Someone else murmured, "You were brave." Brave. I hadn't felt brave. I had felt tired, cornered, exhausted by the constant pressure of pretending everything was fine. But hearing it made it real, made me realize I had done something worth respecting. Later that afternoon, Michelle called me into her office. She closed the door gently and sat across from me with a soft expression. "Alina," she said, "I want you to know your report made a tremendous difference. It didn't just reveal misconduct, it protected employees." I swallowed hard. For a moment, I didn't know what to say. "Thank you," I finally whispered. She smiled slightly. "We also reviewed your work performance. It's clear you've been carrying far more responsibility than your role requires, and doing it with excellence." My heart pounded. Then she said the words that felt unreal. "We'd like to offer you the position of interim team lead while we restructure the department." My breath caught. "Me?" "Yes," she said. "You've earned it. And you're the most qualified for it. Your work speaks for itself." For a moment, I just sat there frozen. Graham had spent months trying to bury me. And in his attempt to crush me, he unintentionally uncovered exactly how valuable I really was. When I accepted the role, I expected people to question it. But what happened next stunned me. The team supported me, fully. The interns who once feared Graham now came to me with ideas. The analysts who had been sidelined began thriving. People stayed late not because they were forced to, but because they cared again. The department became lighter, more open, more human. Because the shadow that had been suffocating us was gone. Still, even with everything improving, a small part of me wondered what had happened to Graham. Not because I felt sorry for him, no, but because men like him rarely disappear quietly. That question was answered 2 weeks later. I was leaving the office when I saw him. Or rather, I saw what remained of him. He was standing near the parking lot, looking nothing like the polished, arrogant boss who once strutted through the hallways. His suit was wrinkled. His tie was loose. His hair messy. His eyes, once sharp with superiority, were filled with rage and desperation. My heart dropped, but not out of fear. Out of shock. He stepped toward me. "You," he said coldly. "You ruined everything." I didn't move backward. I didn't shrink. I didn't apologize. I just looked at him steady. "You ruined yourself." His face twisted. "I know it was you. HR didn't say it, but I know. You think you're better than me?" I answered quietly. No, I just did my job. You didn't. For a moment, he looked like he wanted to lunge at me, but something in my eyes must have stopped him, because he froze, breathing hard. Then he laughed bitterly, shaking his head. You'll see, he muttered. People like you don't win. I held my ground. Maybe not before, but things are different now. He glared at me one last time, then walked away, angry, humiliated, defeated. That was the last time I ever saw him. A month later, a memo circulated quietly through the company. Graham had been blacklisted across multiple firms for fraudulent behavior. The marketing industry is smaller than it seems. His reputation had crumbled. His contacts abandoned him. Every job offer he applied for turned him away. He didn't just lose his job that day. He lost his entire career. Meanwhile, I flourished. I became full team lead within 3 months. My ideas were recognized. My work was valued. And most importantly, no one ever tried to dim my light again. And sometimes on quiet days, when I pass by the old conference room, I think about the moment he threatened me. The moment he told me he'd take me down with him. He didn't know that by pushing me, by underestimating me, by trying to crush me. He made me stronger than I had ever been. He taught me how to fight for myself, how to protect my work, how to recognize my worth, and how to end a war I never asked for, but absolutely won. Because in the end, the man who tried to destroy me didn't just lose the battle. He lost everything built on lies. And I walked away with the one thing he never had: honesty, respect, and a future I earned with my own hands. And that will always be the greatest revenge